Hi everyone, welcome to the Finance Story Daily, where we bring you latest updates, career insights, and stories to enable you make better decisions. So today I have with me Dr. Amarjit Chopra, sir. Sir needs no introduction. Basically, you would have seen his articles. He's very vocal about a lot of topics and always shares his thoughts. So to just give you a little bit of background, sir has been in practice for almost 49 years, for actually exact 49 years. When I was talking to sir, I just realized that. And apart from his professional accomplishments, Dr. Amarjit Chopra has been the chairman of NACAS, which was succeeded by NFRA. And NFRA is the National Financial Reporting Authority of India. Also, sir has been nominated on bench 2 of the disciplinary committee of ICAI for the period of 2018 to 2022. So, sir, thank you so much for joining us and for discussing the impact of NFRA on audit practices, because everybody is so curious to understand and know how could they navigate and what's in store for them. So, thank you, sir, for the time. Thanks a lot.
No, thanks a lot. Rather, it's the other way around.
Thank you,
And
sir.
very good evening to everyone.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for joining in. If you have any questions, please type in and ask. From whatever I know of Amarjit sir, he is going to take up every question point blank to the point, no dodging replies. So, I mean, sir, again, thanks again. And thanks everyone for joining in. So my first question to you is, can you just share a little bit about your journey, and you have been in practice for what? Almost 50 years right now. So how have you managed to keep your practice up to date and relevant even today?
Uh, I don't think there is any secret about it. Of course, I am a product of the times when there were no accounting standards, there were no auditing standards, there were not boards even, very frankly. Uh, of course, there were auditing practices. There was a very small statement on auditing practices issued by the institute when I qualified in 1975. And as I say in a lighter vein, probably most of the time, that probably I qualified because there were no accounting standards and auditing standards to be applied to in the examination, for that matter. But as the things do happen, basically, we set up the practice in 1975 and have continued our journey. We have gone on adding the people into the journey. Yes, those times are much easier if you really ask me. Of course, the opportunities are much lesser at that particular point of time. But today, the opportunities are great, but at the same time, we have moved from a period of virtually no regulation to an over-regulation.
Yep.
Today, if you ask me, it is a period of over-regulation in the entire profession and in the economy for that. And it's not only the accounting profession which is facing the heat. I think different segments, even the banking sector is facing a lot of heat. Even some of the startups are facing the heat with regard to the valuations, etc. So I think we have moved away from a period of either little regulation or no regulation to a period of over regulation. So auditing profession has been the one which has to be scared, because we must understand one thing very clearly. When I talk of my journey, as I said, at that time, if at all the sampling was to be done, it was a very different modus operandi to do the sampling. Today, it
Yep.
is a very different way of doing the sampling. And in the times to come, if you ask me, there will be no sample, because the moment you are going to apply the tools to the entire universe of the data, the
Yep.
exceptions will be thrown out, and probably 100% of the universe will be considered as a sample. So the things have changed. The things will continue to change. There is no doubt. Artificial intelligence is knocking at your doors, not knocking, rather, it has already intruded into your houses, homes, businesses. So all those things will continue. But I can only tell you that one thing, that if you are doing honestly some of the things, you need not be over scared. You have to be scared. There's no doubt. And it's the time when you have to be skeptical, frankly. Uh, Today, the people, because of the social media, one thing that I will like to say is,
Yeah.
people come to know the things very quickly, what is happening around. Whether it is the case of BYJU'S or it is the case of anyone else, I think people become aware of everything very soon. Even if something is happening in the institute, There are various groups on the social media which take care of the functioning of the institute also, for that matter. So if one has to be scared, one has to be skeptical about the way one is functioning, but one need not be over scared of the things to come. So I personally feel the things have moved on, the things will keep on moving on, the reporting practices have undergone a change. It is not the time when you can say that the auditor will not be held liable for the frauds. I think the time is ripe enough today where we are no more watchdogs. Let's be very clear about it. People don't expect you to be watchdogs. You are expected to be at least barking dogs, if not, I think biting dogs for that matter. You may not be bloodhound, but you have to necessarily bark today and give the signals to the public at large, give the signals to the stakeholders as to what is happening in the entity.
That's amazing. We're always taught to be watchdogs, but I like the way you put it. We have to be barking dogs.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's amazing. Also, I have this question. You said there's a lot of over regulation that's happening. We'll come on to that. But the whole topic today is about NAFRA, right? Whenever I talk to any CA firms, like I've never been in practice, so I don't have a whole hold about this. So you can, of course, take charge of the most of the conversation. But a lot of CA firms are like, hey, I want to get out of audit. Audit is the margins are less and it's getting more challenging. The processes are difficult, whatever. But when I talk to a different set of CA firms, they're like, hey, regulatory body is good and it's amazing that they are in place. So just to to start this conversation on NAFRA, can you tell us what is NAFRA and why was it started? Okay, and what are the objectives in regulating the audit practices in India when they started it?
You see, when the Act of 2013 came in, of
Yeah.
the Companies Act, Section 132 was introduced. But then, for a very long time, this Section 132 was not implemented. Let's be very clear about it.
Okay.
Institute kept on representing to the government that we are the accounting regulators and we are having our own disciplinary mechanism. So why should all these things happen? In that particular situation, two or three things have happened. If you really ask me, one thing is that the general public perception has been that we are an elected body. And if an elected body in which the voters are voting and the same voters are coming before the disciplinary committee, and in the disciplinary committee, these elected representatives are sitting, whether this body can be considered to be independent, whether the disciplinary mechanism is independent or not. I think this has been one of the perceptions in the minds of the various politicians, various bureaucrats, the public at large. So, this is one reason.
Okay.
The second thing is, firstly, when the scam happened earlier of Harshad Mehta, and at that time there was the Janki Raman committee report, and then RBI asked the institute to take the action against the various auditing firms. But the RBI itself delayed submission of the Janki Raman committee report. RBI wanted the institute to act on its own, suo motu, without a complaint being filed against the various auditing firms. Even Janki Raman committee, based upon which the entire case was to be filed, was to be actually proceeded with, that was not made available for a very large number of years. So it was ultimately 98 or 99 sometimes that these reports were made available and the cases were then gone ahead very quickly. Then there were certain other scams which happened, basically Ketan Parikh scam or other scam. Then happened Satyam. Now, we must always realize one thing, that so far as the smaller firms are concerned, they have not been able to go to the courts and get the stays. But whenever it comes to the bigger firms, they go to the court and get the stays for various reasons. Now, if at all Satyam got delayed a bit, basically the disciplinary mechanism got delayed a bit in the case of Satyam, and I will not say even that is too much of a delay. It happened in 2009, and by 2012 the people had been held guilty. So over a period of 3 years you had held them guilty. But from 2009 onwards, they had taken the stay from the courts, basically, and so that you couldn't have it moved against them. Now, in 2011, 10 and 11, I was the president, and
Yep.
I took up on myself that in any case, I have to get the stay vacated. And it was really a Herculean task. But the stay was got vacated before I vacated my office. Let me be very clear about it. And after that, within 6 months to 9 months, we held the people guilty. Now, if you call that as a delay, people call it as a delay, one is willing to accept it. I think this is the way it has been communicated to the higher authorities, and that is a grievance which has been held against the institute, some or the other. Even in other cases also, these stays were obtained by the various larger firms, the bigger firms, and the cases were delayed to that extent. And you will accept and at least appreciate one thing. There's no way that the president of the institute or disciplinary of the committee of the institute can risk to be held guilty of the contempt of the court. There's no way that it can be done. It is for the courts to ensure that wherever such cases are filed which are in public interest, basically, no
Yeah.
stay should be granted. The courts must tell the respondents that let the case be decided, and after that you come back to us for the operation. We may stay the operation if at all we feel it to be justified, operation of that particular. But you don't allow the case to be proceeded. Even in the case of NFRA, if you ask me in NFRA, there are firms which have gone to the court and got the stays for different reasons, if not on these grounds, so on certain other grounds. So this has been one of the mechanisms which has been followed by the bigger firms, and the cases were delayed. But the entire blame was coming to the institute, unfortunately, and the institute was not able to project it the way it should have been projected, that the delay is not on our part. So ultimately, what happened was the Nirav Modi case, and I think that was the nail in the coffin, if you really ask me, the last nail in the coffin. And after that, 132 was implemented, NFRA came into existence, and now people see NFRA, and very rightly so, as an independent regulator. And believe me one thing, and I think, and I'm willing to put it on record, I've been the one who has never opposed NFRA's constitution. The only thing that I've been telling the government earlier also, when it was to be implemented and subsequently also, that NFRA should not get into the smaller cases. NFRA should be doing the bigger cases only, probably top 150 companies. Whosoever is auditing those 150 companies of the country, or in the listed entities, or maybe another 150 very big public unlisted entities, wherever the public interest is involved. If NFRA tries to get into, believe me, and I am saying it on record, if they get into smaller cases, I think NFRA will lose its significance in the times to come. Let there be a very, I can say, whatever has been the purpose of bringing in NFRA or NFRA, that has been that they look into the public interest entity cases, and
Yeah.
then the quality. If you are able to maintain the quality of the audit in respect of the bigger entities, basically, where there is substantial public interest involved, I think it's good enough. There's no doubt about it. And why should we oppose it? And why should the firms of the chartered accountants oppose that, for that matter? Because if at all we are being regulated by an independent regulator, and public perceives that institute is an elected, in the council of the institute is definitely an elected body, and out of those elected representatives, there are representatives in the disciplinary committee. So probably they see the conflict of interest basically somewhere or the other, because you go and seek the votes from the same voters. So
Yeah.
I personally feel there's nothing wrong about the constitution or composition of NFRA, which happened in 2018. And I think the important thing will be that both NFRA and institute must play a complementary and supplementary role to each other, rather than looking at each other from the rivalry point of view. And I think over the years, the institute will realize it. The NFRA would also realize it. So far as educating the members is concerned, so far as holding the conferences are concerned, so far as educating the members on ethical standards or auditing practices concerned, let it be left to the institute. I think that is not the area where the NFRA must indulge in. NFRA has been actually brought into existence, firstly, for approving the auditing and assurance auditing standards, accounting standards, which will be, of course, submitted by the institute only. And if at all NFRA feels that there are certain other areas of concern where the accounting practices need to be brought in, they will tell the institute to really lay down some of these standards, which will be brought before NFRA, and NFRA will get into this, get it, recommend it to the government for its notification. Secondly, is I will say, whether you call it inspection or you call it quality review of the various firms which are auditing the public interest entities, the bigger firms, and I will not say only the big four.
Yeah.
I say, when I say bigger firms, the firms which are handling the public interest entities, basically. And I have already said that when I talk of public interest entities, to my mind, you can say 150 or you can say top 250 listed entities of the country, plus another 200 or 250 unlisted entities of the country, the topmost. The auditors of those should be subjected to all kind of quality review, whatever has to be done. And of course, the third function is, if they find that the quality review is actually reflecting a lot of deficiencies in the work, or there are complaints by the government or the regulators in respect of certain matters, let the
Yep.
disciplinary proceedings take place. And I think that's the function of NFRA.
Amazing. Okay. Well said. So I have this, I spoke to a couple of people, and they said that, NFRA has passed an order on the Sundarshan and company recently, where, major strictures almost suspending the firm and penalty running into court. So this is new to India, right? So people are worried about taking audit risk. So you have a comment on this?
No, I certainly would like to comment on it. You see, in the institute, the penalties were minimal. Earlier, there was no question of penalties. It was only when the CA Act was amended, much later, in I think late after 2006 or 2007, that the question of some penalties also came in. Before that, the penalties were not there, besides the disciplinary action. Now, once that started happening, the amount was very low. Believe me, if in the case of Satyam, you are levying a penalty of 5 lakh rupees or 10 lakh rupees, how does it matter?
Yeah.
So that is why probably in the case of Satyam, we had to debar the members for the lifetime, very
Yeah.
frankly.
Yeah.
So I think those kind of, I will treat that to be far more severe penalty than levying a penalty in the terms of monetary terms, basically.
Yeah.
Now, if on a smaller firm you are levying a penalty running into crores of rupees, whereby it is not even commensurate to the fee that he has charged, basically, I think it may or it may not serve the desired purpose. But yes, to an extent, it must have some relation to the fees charged. Must have some relation to the fees charged. You can make it 10 times, you can make it 5 times, whatever times you want to make it, you must make it.
Yeah.
Now, this is definitely new to India. People are worried about taking up the audit risk. I think whatever you do in your life, there is a risk. The moment you ride a car, there is a risk. The moment you drive a scooter, there is a risk. The moment you get onto the road, there is a risk. The moment you are climbing the stairs, there is a risk. Now,
Yeah.
audit risk is similar to that, if you ask me. The only thing is that when you are driving a car and the steering is in your hand, it is under your control. And if someone actually does it, it is not under your control. And here also, it is similar to that. You are driving the car very carefully. As an auditor, you are trying to play your cards very well, and you are trying to get into the various things very well. But if the management hides the information altogether, and an auditor has no way to find out the information from the third parties, very frankly, which are unconnected. If a company is maintaining two bank accounts and the books of accounts do not reveal anything about it,
Yeah.
for that matter, if an entity maintains two bank accounts and they keep on transacting from their end, I don't think you can hold the auditor responsible for it unless you can prove that he had some reason to believe
Yeah.
that these two bank accounts are being operated and he didn't take the requisite care to do that. So what I am trying to say is that somewhere or the other in the audit today, the risk is the not ethics only practiced by the practicing members. The risk is primarily the ethical standards of the CFOs, company secretaries, and the promoters of the organization. I think nobody is trying to look at it. People are saying that auditors are playing the role as if they are actually into the laps of the promoters.
Yeah.
What CFO's role is? Are the CFOs disclosing the information? If the bribes are being paid somewhere, are the whether the CFOs are disclosing that information? The answer is no. If a company secretary does not tell which are the related parties, how does the auditor come to know about it? There is no way that the auditor will come to know about it. Then how do you say that the funds were diverted to the related parties? I think somewhere or the other, we are trying to make only auditors as the scapegoats. Now, why audit committee chairman should not be in the same position? I do appreciate that as an independent director, he may not be visiting the company more than on the occasions than the when the accounts have been presented before the audit committee for the recommendation to the board for its approval. But I think then the auditor also goes for a very small number of days there, basically, and he has to check the entire amount, gamut of the transactions. I am not trying to compare the role of the independent director with the auditor, but what I am trying to say is let's have some mercy on the auditors also. Let's try to find out what is exactly their role. Some or the other, neither the public understands it, nor the regulators want to understand this particular role, nor the politicians want to understand this role. Everyone, when the scam happens, any scam happens, they want to find who is at fault. It is the auditor. No, it cannot only be the auditor. There are many people who are actually responsible for those scams. There could even be the bankers. You see, there are accounts which are turning NPAs. Now, the banker should have been able to actually monitor those accounts properly. It has not happened. Let me be very clear about it. Having audited some of the banks, I find that the bankers knew the things very clearly what is happening, but they also didn't exercise the due diligence and care. Nobody is trying to hold them responsible. Why only auditor? Hold the directors responsible, hold the CFOs responsible, hold the company secretaries responsible, hold the auditors also responsible. I'm not denying that. Wherever you find the auditor has been grossly negligent, do whatever you want to do. But he is not the only culprit. That's what I'm trying to say. That is my humble suggestion. There are different lines of defense, basically, and each line of defense, when it gets breached, that line of defense has also to be questioned why it was breached. And if you don't question that line of defense, I think that is being discriminatory.
That's amazing, and that's so true. So, sir, my question to you is following this. Okay, as of now, yes, auditors are put in this position, right? So, if say I'm a mid-sized firm, right, there's always some kind of fear that's there right now, which is also good in the right spirit, right? So, what would you tell CA firms? Like, especially there's a lot of firms who are growing and are taking about, but they're scared, they're nervous. What is your advice to them?
I will again say one thing very clearly. I think Institute, NFRA, RBI, SEBI need to sit down together somewhere or the other, along with MCA also. They need to actually come to a conclusion what is the exact role of the auditor.
Okay.
But each firm today must make sure, some or the other, that they have the requisite skills for audit. When I say requisite skills, audit is no more a generalized profession today. Audit is becoming a absolutely, uh, you can say, specialized field.
Yep.
With the introduction of the IT, very frankly, with the introduction of artificial intelligence also, the things are not going to be easier. The things are going to be more tough for the auditors because there will be gamut of data and the data will be available to some other regulator. And if you do not analyze the data properly and you do not carry out your assignments properly, you are going to land yourself in problem. The firms, firstly, I think it's not the time for this. It's the time to regroup the auditing profession. When I say regroup, come out with some kind of a larger firms, genuine larger firms, not for the purpose of the government audits. Let's be very clear about it. And the government regulators must also make sure that these kind of firms which are only constituted for the purpose of the government audit, it has to be taken care of, let it be taken care of. I don't want to get into the details thereof in this particular discussion. But what I'm trying to say is that there should be people with some kind of specialized knowledge. Someone has a very specialized knowledge on accounting standards, someone on auditing standards, someone on tax matter, someone on FAMA matters. One auditor may not be able to take care of all the things altogether.
Yeah.
FEMA is absolutely different, but there should be within a firm someone who can be consulted on FEMA, for that matter, and there should be someone who can be consulted for IT matters. There could be someone who can be consulted with regard to the typically tax matters for that. So I think what one is trying to say is anti-money laundering is becoming a big area today, very frankly. I think the auditors have to be cautious on that also. Otherwise, we'll be caught on a wrong foot somewhere.
Yeah.
So you need to have the people, you need to have the firms which have a specialized knowledge in various fields under one roof. Let's be clear so far as that particular part is. So it's the time to regroup the entire auditing profession and charge the fee. I'm coming to this. Institute cannot make the fee recommendatory or mandatory. There's no way that institute can tell what fees you should charge.
Yeah.
Our professionals are trying to find out what, and they want to say that institute must lay down what fee I should charge. How
Yeah.
the institute can? It is a contract between the auditee and the auditor,
Yeah.
and it is who you can assess your risk much better. It is you who can assess your work much better, that how much work will be involved and how much is your risk. Uh,
Yeah.
so I think the fee has to be determined by you and the auditee. Unfortunately, in India, the auditee has never been in a mood to pay the fee to the auditors. Probably because the auditors have not been conscious of their risks. Today, one good thing that is happening with NFRA coming in, members are becoming conscious of
Yep.
their risks now.
Yeah.
And as they become conscious of their risk, the fee levels are bound to go up. There's no doubt about it. And mark my words today, you just wait for 5 years, not more than that. Auditing will be a very different kind of a profession with a much higher fee level. I'm very sure about it, because people will not like to accept any kind of a risk without being paid commensurate thereto.
Yep.
So audit has always been risky. It is not that audit has become risky today, but earlier people were not feeling the heat of the regulation. It's not merely NFRA risk. It is the risk of anti-money laundering. It is the risk of FEMA. It is the risk of NFRA. It is the risk of SFIO. Every kind of risk which has come in. So people will start realizing that I have to charge the fee which is commensurate to the risk that I take, and I cannot. And believe me, as I'm an auditing man basically. I find that the salary levels of the people who come for the audit, whether it is internal or statutory or forensic, anywhere, the salary levels are going up in all.
It
And
is.
so probably the firms may not be able to charge the lower fees and then be able to deploy good people.
You're absolutely and so well put. People are now conscious of the risk as an auditor, which wasn't there earlier. You
Yeah.
know, that has actually happened, right? So that's so well put. So I'll just rewind a little bit, okay, and I'll ask you some very basic questions. If you could explain in a very simple manner, like, okay, so how has the establishment of NFRA and NFRA impacted, okay, the landscape of audit practices in India since its inception? That's one. And any key initiatives or regulations that have been introduced that have significantly influenced the audit practice?
Only in one word I will like to say:
Yeah.
or rather in one sentence, I can say
Yeah.
they have got into, rather the auditors have started believing that there is a greater risk. Now, with institute, they could go to the courts, and here in NFRA also they can go to the courts, but then court treats that it is an independent regulator and they have the support of the government because they are being backed by MCA also. Let's be very clear about it. And the government is serious about it. Let's be clear so far as that particular part is concerned. As the risk is increasing, so the landscape of the audit would also undergo a change. There is no doubt about it. The other thing that one will like to say, which I find very good from the other perspective, is that NFRA has done one good thing, that they have been able to collate some information which institute probably was not able to do. I'm accepting that particular part. Now they are able to track even if a particular firm, which is under a network, basically, if is rendering, suppose X is the main network,
Yeah.
Y is the firm here in India. I'm not naming anybody
Yeah.
deliberately.
Yeah.
And Y is the firm in India. Y is a part of the network X. Now, Y is rendering some audit to an entity Z. And their main network in USA, in England, in Paris, in somewhere else, is rendering all kind of consultancy to them.
Yeah.
NFRA has got into the issue of the independence of the auditor.
Yep.
I think Section 144 of the Companies Act will be implemented far more stringently than what it has been done so far. So probably now the auditor will have to be very, very clear as to that he will not be able to undertake non-audit services of the audit client. Otherwise, his independence is jeopardized. And not only he, this firm, the network firm of this should not be able to. I'm little surprised because recently NFRA undertook some inspections, collected some information from the bigger firms of the firms under the same network. Now, their report indicates that some few of those firms have not even said that, have not been able to provide the information of the other firms under the same network. Then
Yep.
how can these firms say that they were independent if they were not even aware of the firms under the same network, and if they are not aware what services were being rendered by these firms to the auditee somewhere else? How these firms can say that they were independent when they were, and how did they meet the requirement of
Yep.
mitigating the risk of independence?
Yep.
I think this is something which has happened after the NFRA has come into play.
Yep.
So landscape of the audit will definitely undergo a change. The only thing that I would like to say to
Yep.
NFRA people is,
Yep.
when you get into the auditing standard has to be read not word by word and sentence to sentence. I think if you start reading it and then you start interpreting it word by word, and there is something called feasibility of certain implementation. There, if at all some benefit of doubt is to be given to certain firms, it should be given. That's the way I look at it. I don't want to get into the details of this, what I'm saying, but
Yeah.
believe me, if you read every line and say that this particular word has not been followed, I don't think that's the way the audit can be conducted. Otherwise, people will be driven out of the audit profession. Rather, the good people will be driven out of the audit profession. I don't want that to happen. I
Yeah.
want the people who understand audit, who understand what is the expression of an opinion, they stay back into the profession. There's no doubt about it. So This is what I will, but the landscape of the audit will definitely undergo a change. There's no doubt about it. And I think in the times to come, you will find the quality of the audits improving, not only because of NFRA. I think the auditing standards, the way these are being propagated today all over, even by the institute, I can tell you, I have seen over the years the auditing standards under, but at the same time, I will like to say one thing, and this is a request which I am making to everyone. Let's Indianize these auditing standards. Copying word by word from international will not help, because these can help the someone else. These will not help the smaller firms. These will not help the medium practitioners. These can help only few of the people. I think we have to make certain standards which are actually implementable. Now, if I look at SA 505 with regard to external confirmation, there could be a lot of controversies with regard there to, like going concern is one standard. Now, if someone has to say, no, it's not a going concern, it's a very tough decision to say when the promoter says, I am willing to bring in the money. Now, if you keep on saying, no, no, under the assumption that the promoter is saying it, he will bring in the money, but if he doesn't bring in the money, then who is going to be challenged? It is the auditor who is going to be challenged. So my humble suggestion is somewhere or the other, we need to start looking at these auditing standards to what extent the
Yep.
practice of this is possible or not. And we must try to Indianize or at least simplify some of these auditing standards with regard to some of the smaller and medium practitioners. That's the way I look at it.
So why hasn't that been done so far? I mean,
Why it has not been done? So
yeah,
far, we had already always believed that audit is an audit, whether you undertake it in the case of larger firms or in the case of small and medium practitioners. But looking at the entire fee structure of these smaller firms, or which I must say that we it is we who have to improve that uh, fee standards. But at the same time, we must recognize one thing. We live in a country where if you write a letter, you write a mail, if the third party is not willing to confirm, what should I do as an auditor? People are insensitive. Either the reporting formats must undergo a change. Let me say that I had written letter to these many people have not replied to. But can I say that in those cases that these transactions were bogus? No, I don't think I can say that. If the account is being operated smoothly, I had been selling it and I have been receiving the payment, I have been purchasing, I have been
yeah.
making the payment properly, and the bank accounts are there proper, and the payments are going by RTGS or by payments are going by account pay checks. I think somewhere or the other we need discussions on these kind of issues. Going concern is one issue, external confirmation is one issue, inventory verification is one issue, impairment of assets is one of the issues which need to be really taken care of. So there are many issues which probably NFRA, Institute, MCA, SEBI, RBI need to work together with.
Amazing. Everyone who's watching, if you have any questions, please type in. I'll take it right away. So this is the question which follows is you spoke about the non-audit services. Any other recent developments or changes which NFRA has implemented and one should be aware of?
No, NFRA is saying that they will engage in conversation with the audit committees and the directors, and I think it's a very welcome step if you ask me, though it may not be within their scope, if you ask me strictly, that whether they can go to the various companies and talk to the directors and talk to the audit committee.
Yeah.
I think what is more important is that they should combine with, as I say time and again, it's a complementary, supplementary role of ICAI and NFRA. ICI must undertake these programs with the various directors of the various companies, or under the aegis of IICA, which is the Institute of Corporate Governance of MCA. These programs must be undertaken basically. wherein the directors can be called and the directors can be sensitized on the various issues which the people which are being faced by NFRA during the, and how these directors can also be held accountable somewhere or the other. I have always believed in one thing, and I have always thought of one thing, that somewhere or the other, where we find that the auditors has not performed, but auditor has also not performed, but at the same time, the directors have also been negligent in their duty. And
Yeah.
you come across in the proceedings of the disciplinary, I
Yeah.
think the letter must go from the institute also or from the NFRA, wherever the proceedings of the disciplinary committee are taking place, to MCA, that these directors must also be questioned. I can tell you that when I was in the disciplinary committee, we we have recommended some letters to be sent to the MCA. I don't know whether the institute sent it or not, but definitely it has been forming a part of the proceedings that the letters must be sent to MCA against these directors also, that these directors were found to be non-performing basically.
Amazing, amazing. So I know we had taken this question earlier, okay, on similar lines, but I received this question where they say, people are worried that the margins are going down due to, so much of processes, documentations, the margins have been less. So what could impact audit firms who cannot command higher fees? Like I know you've already taken
No,
this up,
I
but
this last part of your question I don't agree. The
okay,
audit firms cannot command high fee, then don't be in the audit profession.
okay,
I
okay,
think it is, as I said, it is my risk appetite. If I feel that I have to keep charging lower fee irrespective of the documentation, etc., why should I? And if I, you see, your question is very, very clear,
hmm.
that because of the better documentation, because of the processes, because of even the IT involvement, the cost, because
Yeah,
today, if you do not bring in the IT to your firm, you cannot survive. And IT can be very, very costly, very frankly. The initiatives on IT can be very costly.
yeah,
Now, if you are unable to charge the fee, then start thinking in terms of diversifying into some other areas.
okay,
But you cannot keep on complaining that because of lower margins, I am not documenting. So it is up to you. If you want to operate on a lower margin, keep on operating on a lower margin. But you cannot compromise on the quality of the audit. Let's be very clear about it.
okay,
I
okay,
think this is, under no circumstances you can compromise on the quality of the audit simply because your margins are lower. I have always said one thing in my various lectures also, that if you feel that for you the fee is not commensurate, let someone else come in now, to whom
yeah,
it is commensurate, and probably he will be able to do a better job out of it.
okay,
But if you feel that for you this fee is good enough, it's fine, then do a quality job. Irrespective, once you have accepted an assignment at a particular fee level, even later on you find that probably the fee is lower,
yeah,
you should render a qualitative job and then go to the board that I was made to put in more efforts and I request you for a higher fee. I think if you are able to convince the board may consider that.
yeah, yeah. Amazing. So I have this question. Okay, so how was audit conducted earlier? And how is audit conducted now with NFRA in the picture, right? So if you could just explain
No,
this.
no difference. No difference.
No.
I you see, all those people who are thinking that no audit is being conducted in a different manner, I don't agree, except the documentation has improved, had to be improved. So the manner of conducting the audit remains the same. You can find out from any of the bigger firms also. Have they changed their way of auditing? Can they say that they were auditing a bigger bank in a different manner than what they are auditing today? No. I think what will change the auditing process is the IT environment, artificial intelligence. That will impact the process of the auditing. Because the standards have to be followed. Auditing standards have to be followed earlier also. Auditing standards have to be followed today also. The only difference could have been probably that you were taking a call on going concern, probably thinking that today, when you are going to take a call on going concern or on external confirmation or on certain other aspects or on 240, asset 240 with regard to frauds,
Yeah.
you will definitely think what view NFRA can take based upon the existing decisions of NFRA. To
Yeah.
that extent, if it will undergo a change, fine. Otherwise, I don't think that the process of the auditing will undergo a change.
Okay. Okay. That's well said. Sir, I have this question for you on. I don't know if you can skip sharing examples or cases. So can you share example of cases where NFRA has played a significant role in enforcing compliance and maintaining quality standards and audit practices? Like,
I,
in
I, I can tell you that there were certain listed entities.
yeah,
This is something which I was talking of 15 years back in my lectures. You can go through my lectures to 15 years back, where I said that how a company can write in their notes to account and auditor not qualify the report, where the company writes that we have not provided for interest on borrowings, where an account has been treated as NPA by the bank, because the bank has stopped charging interest on the borrowings, so we will also not. For you, it's a contracted liability. For the company, it's a contractual liability. The bank is bound by the prudential norms. The
yeah,
bank cannot charge the interest if you are in arrears beyond 90 days in any case. Similarly, there were cases of the listed entities where deferred tax assets were created in respect of the unabsorbed depreciation and unabsorbed losses, basically. Now, if the board report itself is indicating that the company will continue to run into losses, how can you create a deferred tax asset in respect thereof? Recently, the NFRA has held the people guilty on those grounds also. Let's be clear about it. So I think once people start appreciating one thing, that all these calls which are to be taken, certain things which were hidden in notes by the companies and not commented upon by the auditors, now I think the quality would improve on those grounds. There is no doubt about it.
amazing. So, sir, if what is your advice to CA firms just starting out, or the mid-sized ones? In the next 5 years, how do you foresee it entirely changing? Like, now earlier we would not hear cases where, auditors, as you said, they're so conscious of their risk right now. And now with technology, with AI, deep fakes, so many aspects, they have to be so careful, right? So, how do you see it changing from your
My
perspective?
advice is only one,
Yeah.
and it will remain always one.
Yeah.
Be ethical in your conduct when it comes to audit. If you can't accept an audit, don't accept an audit. If you are not independent, don't accept an audit. If you don't have the better understanding of the auditing standards, don't conduct the audit. You have to be very, very clear about these issues. I think ultimately what is going to matter is the ethical conduct. And I think Institute has to propagate ethical standards more than anything else. And I think NFRA should also conduct more of the, if at all they are willing to get into the conferences part, I think the emphasis has to be on the ethical part. We are all into the accounting standards, we are into the auditing standards, but what about the ethical standards? Ultimately, what matters is how much ethical you are. If you are ethical, I think you will definitely like to do whatever is being asked of,
Yeah.
whatever has to be done. But if you are unethical, you will be willing to take any kind of risk, irrespective of the fees. So ultimately, it will boil down to your ethical conduct. And whether it is ethical conduct of the CFO, ethical conduct of the CS, ethical conduct of the directors, ethical conduct of the auditors, ethical conduct of the promoters.
Amazing. Sir, before I go to this next question, I want to ask you, we've spoken a lot about auditors, right? You engage with a lot of clients as well. How has their perspective changed on audit right now? What are they thinking?
The client.
The client.
Client is also thinking that they are over-regulated. The clients are also feeling the heat. They are feeling over-regulated. After, if you look at the CARO, the company's auditor report order, the number of questions which have increased, which are to be reported by the auditor, and even in the Schedule 3, the kind of disclosures, the kind of statements which are to be made, the kind of assertions which are to be made by the management itself.
Yeah.
I think that clearly shows that they are also under pressure. They are also supposed to disclose so many things which they were not asked to disclose. Why this has happened? Because ultimately it has been found that we have not been ethical in our conduct.
Yeah.
And now those ethics, these so many disclosures are clearly a reflection of lack of the ethical conduct on our part, which is being enforced on us through the law now.
Okay, amazing. Well said. Okay, so in future, when I understand all of these things, in future, in fact, even now, if you want to be an auditor, you have to agree to the fact that you have to be ethical. No signing of audit reports, no just overlooking stuff, because the you'll have to pay a very heavy price for it, right?
Yeah,
That is the bottom line.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. So, okay, when it comes to joint audits, okay, if joint audits should be passed by the regulator, so what should domestic firms do to gear up and take up these audits along with the big four or larger firms?
Let's cross the bridge when we reach there, very frankly.
Okay,
The reason being that Corporate Laws Committee of the government,
yeah,
of which I have been a member
yeah,
personally, has already cleared it, but it has not seen the light of the day so far. It was passed maybe more than 3 years back, but it is yet to see the light of the day because some of the firms are against it. The corporates are not willing to support this particular view, and they want some or the other an empirical evidence that joint audit will be effective or has been effective in the countries. I have always said one thing very clearly that there may or may not be empirical evidences of certain matters. But if at all some changes are required, let those changes come in. And if those changes will not meet the objectives, let those changes be repealed again. How does it matter? If I have I have seen joint audits in the public sector undertakings, it has been successful. I've seen the joint audits even in the private sector enterprises. It has not been bad, very frankly. But according to some of the firms, they feel, or for various reasons, I would say
yeah,
that they probably they feel that if one of the smaller firms has to come in along with the big four, whether it
yeah,
is justified or unjustified, I don't want to justify or unjustify that. But I personally feel that if a change is required, a change is required, and let that change is coming. When the rotation of auditors was being talked of in 2013, some of the bigger firms were even resenting that, very
yeah,
frankly. At that time, also, as a president, before that, as a president of the institute, when our comments were asked for, I was very clear that if the public feels that an auditor, if he continues for a longer time with somebody, actually is able to overlook some of the things, then let this perception of the public be met that we will bring in the rotation of the auditor. Why not to try something new? Whether it would serve or not serve the purpose, that's a different
yeah,
matter. But if it even the various governments act that way, that
yeah,
wherever public has a particular perception, they try to meet the public perception as a consequence of that. And I think as an institute also, as a regulator of the accounting profession, we also have this similar duty. And the firms themselves should not resist joint audit coming in. The joint audit, let the joint audit come. And wisdom of no profession. Let me put the final comment on this particular part. Wisdom of the profession, if lies within 5 or 10 or 15 firms,
yeah,
I think this profession will go, if not today, tomorrow. Wisdom of the profession has to lie in a much larger scale of the firms, basically. If the largest membership is well educated, is well prepared, I think only then the profession can survive. Otherwise, the monopolies will be created, and monopolies are always bad. And you
Yeah.
tell me, can anybody deny that wherever the frauds are taking place, whether in all the cases the smaller auditors were there or the bigger auditors were there? So, if someone says no, no, the bigger firms are better, if someone says no, the smaller firms are better, I say no one is better, no one is worse. But yes, let there be a bigger dispersal and bigger knowledge seeking by the various firms. And
Yeah.
if smaller firms or medium scale firms can have knowledge skills basically and have the requisite skills to conduct the audit of the bigger clients, why not accept
Yeah.
it?
So you interact with a lot of CA firms, with a lot of different clients. Okay, so what is the general sentiment do you see of CA firms today?
What is
What are
the
what is the sentiment you see from CA firms today? So what are they thinking? Like, are they looking at audit as a huge opportunity, or are they mostly thinking of diversifying and moving away from it? What do you observe?
it's a mixed sentiment. It's a mixed sentiment. People like us will never get out of the audit. Now, whether it will be statutory audit or it will be internal audit or it will be forensic audit or it will be some other audit, we personally feel that probably audit has been the bread and butter of any chartered accountancy firm. So far as the other areas are concerned, they may add some luxuries. But so far as the bread earning is concerned, it comes through the audit profession only. Let's be clear so far as that part is concerned. I think there is a mixed sentiment. People who are too scared, basically, they want to go out and diversify in some other areas. People who are stuck with the audit and at our age, what else we shall be looking for? One thing that one has to be very clear as a medium scale firm or as a small firm, people like us who are getting into the 70s or late 60s will have to rely upon the younger members for the ITs.
Yeah.
And I think this is one area where each one of us should be prepared to hand over, to decentralize, or to delegate the authority, to delegate responsibility may remain with you, but to delegate some authority to the younger people. We will like to pass on the baton to the younger people for better functioning of the profession. And if we don't do it, the
Yeah.
profession is going to suffer. Because the younger generation today is better equipped so far as I said, I am a product of the times when there were no auditing or accounting standards. Today, the people are studying, the people who are qualifying are studying all kind of standards. So even the internal audit standards are there, the forensic standards are there. So they are better equipped basically. So pass on, supervise them, guide them, but let them operate at the field level and you continue to supervise and review their work. That is the way I look at it.
Okay. Okay. Well said. This is a repeated question, but a lot of people, we did a little bit of a research. So they said that, hey, there's so much of paperwork involved in audit, filling up sheets and using software for audit. Some people are feeling that the art of audit is, literally dying because there's only paperwork, there's only processes. So
No, I
you
I
don't
will
agree?
only say one thing, Shintu, that
Yeah.
come what may,
Yeah.
the significance of this cannot be done away with. This brain, the
Yeah.
human brain, is the best computer.
Yeah.
Whatever data may be thrown out by the computers or by the IT, ultimately, who will analyze that? Of course, people say that even through the artificial intelligence analysis would also come in. But
Yeah.
someone has to interpret it. No? Ultimately, someone will have to interpret it. And after all, tailor-made situations cannot be given to artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Someone will have to study everything and then give an expression of an opinion. So I personally feel, irrespective of the paperwork, irrespective of the software, these will facilitate your work. These will facilitate your working papers basically, but ultimate responsibility for your analysis and interpretation and formation of an opinion would continue to lie with you.
Amazing. That's amazing. So, sir, would you want to give any closing remarks on this to CAs in practice, to be auditors who are planning their career in audit, who are already in audit and
I,
thinking of
I,
moving up?
I, I
Yeah,
think I have said enough, and I
yeah,
will again repeat. Let us study. Let's continue to learn. First unlearn, then relearn, basically. And continue to march on with qualitative, ethical, and competent skills, basically. I think what is more important is whatever comes into the market, which helps me to conduct the audit. And I must have the habit of reading. I must have the habit of reading the news also, listening to. And I should, as an auditor, I have to be a good listener. I always say, if you jump to conclusion straight away, you will never be a good auditor. When you go out to audit, whatever is happening around you, whatever the staff of the audit is talking about, and if you are a good listener, you can bring out something out of that also.
yeah.
But at the end, I will only say nothing to fear, whether it is NFRA or it is institute or anyone else. I must stick to my competence levels, ethical levels, and of course, must form my opinion objectively and independently. That's very, very important.
That's amazing and really well said. It's amazing. So the bottom line is be ethical, do follow the right processes, and don't be scared. It's okay. Okay. So I cannot. I have to ask you about the BYJU'S case. I did read your article on ETCFO. Would you want to say anything about it?
About
About BYJU'S, if you want to add, just in just out of
no,
topic. But
Byju's is an unfortunate story wherein aggressive accounting policies were followed, basically, and their declarations in US are different than what they are trying to make the declarations here. But if Ravindran, as I said in another interview in ETCFO, if investors are willing to throw him out, then the forensic audit has to be conducted and completed
yeah,
to fix his accountability. But somewhere or the other, it appears that there is some kind of diversion which has taken place. Appears to be. I will not like to go beyond saying that it appears to be. And the other thing is that the investors must also make sure one thing, that throwing out Ravindran at this stage, whether it helps them or not. And if the company is in need of funds and you don't provide them the funds, then what happens? Then the company is going to close down, and whose asset will be impaired at the end of the day? Investors are also going to lose money.
yeah,
I think the advisory council, to my mind, has got three things in their mind. One thing is that they say that the money has to be pumped in. There's no doubt. Whether promoters do it, investors do it, whosoever does it. Four
yeah,
things rather in their view. The second thing is the forensic audit should be completed as fast as possible. And Ravindra must actually, I can say, assist them in completion of an earlier forensic audit. Thirdly, the statutory audit must be completed up to 23 as fast as possible.
yeah,
And fourthly, of course, if a term loan has to be organized, let the term loan be organized. No, unfortunately, what has happened is that the investors have gone to MCA for oppression case for minorities. NCLT, on the other hand, has said that so far as the right issue is concerned, you can go ahead with the right issue, but till the time the decision of the MCA comes in with regard to this case of oppression of minority, you cannot touch these funds. You cannot allot the shares. Then what is the point of having the right issue? I'm surprised at this judgment. Either you say that you don't go in for the right issue till the time the MCA comes up with the minority operation case judgment. But if you go you allow the right issue to take place, then allow the share allotment also to take place.
Yeah.
But you advise the investors that you also pump in the money, because otherwise your holding of 24.5% will be reduced to almost 3%.
Yeah.
So why should you commit this harakiri? So there are many things which can be said about it, but ultimately, I think somewhere or the other, the earlier auditors were doing resigned also, resigned after a few years after all this happened, and now um, a particular firm has accepted this particular assignment. I personally feel that they must have really looked at their risks of accepting this assignment, and let us see when they complete the assignment what is their report about it. That's all I can say about BYJU'S.
Amazing. So, I would want to ask you, like, you've been in this profession for 5 decades. Okay, 50 years. That's amazing. That's a long time. And you're still so, what do you say, passionate about whatever you do. I see a lot of your interviews. I see you participating and being very active of in everything that's happening. So what drives you? What's your mindset like? How are you always full of energy and what do you say? Always on top of things.
No, I will not say that one is at the top of the things, but one will definitely say that uh, probably your passion drives it.
Yeah.
I've always considered one thing, that if you do something, do with passion,
Yeah.
then you don't feel tired. If you are doing it per force, then you will always feel tired. So till the time I enjoy doing auditing, I'll continue to do it with passion. The
Yeah.
moment I feel that no, I'm not enjoying it, I'm not actually driving the pleasure out of it, I would stop at that particular point of time. So till the time I'm able to contribute to the society, to the profession, and mentoring some of the youngsters for
Yeah.
that matter, I'll
Yeah.
continue to do that. That's my goal. And of course, uh, one thing is that it all requires your family support,
Yeah.
and I've been very lucky that way.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is where I will like to end up with.
Yeah.
Particularly if your spouse doesn't want you to
Yeah.
be active, you can't be active. So the
Yeah.
credit goes to the family rather than to me.
Yeah. Yes, sir. That's well said. So thank you so much for your time. Thanks a lot for sharing your insights, your knowledge, and your time with us. It means a lot. And we will make an article out of it. I will also make clips of the video and share it because this is fantastic knowledge and information for everybody. So thank you so much, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Shantu. Thank you
Thank
very much. Thanks to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thanks a lot. Take care.